3-foot clearance in front of electrical panel boards extends 6 feet up from the floor, not to the structural ceiling. National Electrical Code Article 110.26. A state's working space about electrical equipment shall comply with the following. Subsection A. Working space in front of electrical equipment. Sufficient clear working space shall be provided in front of electrical equipment to permit ready and safe operation and maintenance of such equipment. Clear working space shall not be less than 3 feet wide in front of electrical equipment and shall extend from the floor to a height of at least 6 feet above the floor or to the structural ceiling, whichever is lower. This means that the minimum clear working space in front of a 120/208-volt panel board is 3 feet, extending the full width of the equipment. More importantly, the height is either 6 feet or the structural ceiling, whichever is lower. So if the ceiling is less than 6 feet, the clearance must extend to the ceiling. If the ceiling is more than 6 feet, the clearance only needs to extend 6 feet above the floor. The purpose of this requirement is to provide enough space for electricians and other qualified personnel to safely work on electrical equipment while it is energized. This space allows for movement, access to tools, and the ability to perform tasks without being unduly cramped or obstructed. The 3-foot depth is a minimum requirement, and in some cases, depending on the voltage and other factors, a greater depth may be required. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, provides tables that specify the required depth of working space based on voltage to ground and the condition of the installation. Condition 1 would be exposed live parts on one side and no live or grounded parts on the other side of the working space, or exposed live parts on both sides effectively protected by insulation or other means. Condition 2 would be exposed live parts on one side and grounded parts on the other side. Condition 3 would be exposed live parts on both sides of the working space, not guarded as provided in Condition 1, with the operator between. For 120/208-volt systems, the minimum clear distance for Condition 1 is 3 feet. For Condition 2 it is also 3 feet. And for Condition 3 it is 4 feet. The 6-foot height requirement ensures that there is adequate headroom for personnel to stand and work comfortably. It also helps to prevent accidental contact with overhead obstructions such as pipes or conduit. The phrase structural ceiling refers to the lowest permanent overhead structure such as the actual ceiling or any beams, pipes, or other obstructions that are permanently installed and reduce the available headroom. It's important to note that this clearance must be maintained at all times. Equipment or material should not be stored or placed in the working space, as this could obstruct access and create a safety hazard. The working space should also be kept clear of any tripping hazards such as cores or tools. In addition to the minimum clearance requirements, the NEC also specifies requirements for illumination and access to the working space. Adequate lighting is essential for safe and effective work, and the working space must be readily accessible and have a clear path of egress. The specific requirements for illumination and access vary depending on the installation, but the general intent is to ensure that personnel can safely enter and exit the working space and perform their tasks without being unduly hindered. It is also important to consider any local amendments or interpretations of the NEC. Local jurisdictions may have additional requirements or may interpret the NEC differently. It's always a good idea to check with the local electrical inspector or authority having jurisdiction, also known as the AHJ, to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Regular inspections of electrical equipment and working spaces can help to identify and correct any potential hazards. Inspection should be performed by qualified personnel and should include a visual examination of the equipment and working space, as well as testing of electrical components. Any deficiencies that are identified should be corrected promptly to prevent accidents and ensure the safe operation of electrical equipment. In summary, the 3-foot clearance rule for electrical panel boards extends 6 feet up from the floor or to the structural ceiling, whichever is lower. This requirement is intended to provide a safe and accessible working space for electrical personnel. Compliance with this rule, as well as other applicable requirements in the NEC, is essential for preventing accidents and ensuring the safe operation of electrical equipment. The purpose of Article 110.26. of the NEC is to ensure that there is sufficient space around electrical equipment for safe operation and maintenance. This space is referred to as working space, and it includes specific requirements for width, depth, and height. The width of the working space must be at least 30 inches, or the width of the equipment, whichever is greater. This ensures that there is enough room for a person to stand comfortably in front of the equipment and perform tasks. The depth of the working space depends on the voltage of the equipment and the conditions of the installation, as previously described. The higher the voltage, the greater the required depth. The conditions of the installation refer to the presence of exposed live parts and grounded parts on either side of the working space. The height of the working space must be at least 6 feet 6 inches, or the height of the equipment, whichever is greater. This ensures that there is enough headroom for a person to stand and work comfortably without hitting their head on the equipment or ceiling. In addition to the minimum dimensions of the working space, the NEC also specifies requirements for access and egress. The working space must be readily accessible and have a clear path of egress. This means that there should be no obstructions blocking access to the working space, and there should be a clear path for personnel to exit the working space in case of an emergency. The NEC also includes requirements for illumination of the working space. Adequate lighting is essential for safe operation and maintenance of electrical equipment. The NEC requires that the working space be illuminated with sufficient light to allow personnel to safely perform their tasks. The specific lighting requirements depend on the type of equipment and the nature of the work being performed. It is important to note that the NEC is a minimum standard, and in some cases, it may be necessary to provide additional working space or lighting to ensure safe operation and maintenance of electrical equipment. Factors to consider include the complexity of the equipment, the frequency of maintenance, and the skill level of the personnel performing the work. In addition to the NEC, other codes and standards may also apply to electrical installations. For example, the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, publishes standards for fire protection and electrical safety. These standards may include additional requirements for working space and access to electrical equipment. It is important to be familiar with all applicable codes and standards and to ensure that electrical installations comply with these requirements. Regular inspections and maintenance are essential for ensuring the safety of electrical installations. Inspections should be performed by qualified personnel and should include a visual examination of the equipment and working space, as well as testing of electrical components. Any deficiencies that are identified should be corrected promptly to prevent accidents and ensure the safe operation of electrical equipment. Proper training is also essential for personnel who work on electrical equipment. Personnel should be trained in the safe operation and maintenance of electrical equipment and should be familiar with all applicable codes and standards. Training should be ongoing and should be updated as new technologies and standards are developed. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure the safety of electrical installations and prevent accidents. Remember, electrical safety is everyone's responsibility.